Okay, so in the last video, I mentioned that I was recording a video straight after that one. Yeah, I'm in a different outfit, I think. So I clearly didn't. I did actually, but when it came to editing it, it was a kind of incoherent ramble about what it means to be a creative and things like that. Not that most of my videos aren't incoherent rambles, but that really was when I tried to edit it down, it just didn't make any sense. And then, as I mentioned, the next day I had the meeting with War Cradle, who I work for part time, who I worked for part time, spoiler. And up until the drive to the meeting, I still didn't know what I was going to do. I knew that on a responsible level, for my own well being, I had to take the work. But on a creative level, I knew how impactful it can be to be working full time on something creative and then also try and do your own projects at the same time. I mentioned that in that last video. They drain the same battery. So something happened during the meeting, in the lead up to the meeting and during the meeting, where I just decided for sure I was going to take full time work. Now, I can't talk about what that is right now. I can't. I need to speak to them about that, about when anything can be spoken about, as far as what we discussed during that meeting that really did make my mind up on this is definitely the right thing to do. For the time being, what it means is that I just go full time in my current role, but there's a lot of potential news coming. And as I discussed with them, if a lot of this other potential doesn't come to pass, then I want to be able to scale back the full time work again, not quit because I need the money. I worked with War Cradle before. And for those that don't know, what happened was it got to a stage where I felt like I was suffocating in the company and I felt that I wasn't providing them value for money and I felt that I wasn't moving forward with my own stuff. And so I just quit. That they bent over backwards. I think I did mention this in the previous video. They bent over backwards to try and find some way. But by that time, I'd already made my mind up. And so I quit anyway. I then approached them about taking on some work with them. And they had the Valiant book project coming. One second. I'm going to pause this for a moment. Okay, I'm back. Technical difficulties. And I wanted to show the book. Funnily enough, they approached me about doing this book. I said, why don't I just work part time? It will easily cover the cost of doing this book, and I can do some other bits and pieces as and when you need them, because I needed the money. Right, that's the truth of it, and that doesn't change today. But I went part time so I could continue working on my own stuff. But that was a few years ago at this point, and I still haven't managed to release anything of my own. And the whole point was is that my own personal work was meant to supplement this part-time work, and hopefully I could have a career doing part-time work with people that I enjoy working with and have some social interaction, because Lord knows I don't have a lot of it, as well as be creatively fulfilled. As I mentioned, they were very, very interested in me going full-time because of so much stuff that they've got going on, which doesn't include what I can't talk about. And in amongst that, they have always said that I could pitch ideas to them. If I wanted to do something creative in my own way, I even mentioned this in the last video, that I could pitch ideas to them, I could work on those things, but I didn't want to do it in that way. But I did have an idea that I wanted to pitch to them. And when I discussed that idea with them, they had some ideas of their own that they wanted to pitch to me that were very, very in line with each other. Yes, that's very cryptic, but I can't talk about that at the moment. But what it does mean at the moment is that I am going back to work full time, basically. But this is a much easier form of working full time than it was when I was working on anything at DC or places like that. Because when you work at DC or 2000 AD, when you do the comic work like that, you are still freelance. And that means full time is whatever you set it to be to meet the deadlines, which meant, like, no exaggeration, there were times when I did like 18-hour days, 7 days a week for 3 months straight. This is a job with a studio that has operational hours. I work from 9 till 5, technically. And so it's a much more structured approach. Now, again, even in going full time, I don't have to go into the office still. They're still very flexible on my hours. They're completely up to me how I work them, as long as I'm doing now what is technically 5 days a week, 9 to 5. As long as I'm fitting those hours in on a weekly basis, then my hours are as flexible as I want them to be. So all in all, this couldn't be a more ideal job if it tried. It just couldn't. I just don't think, as the creative that I am, at least, I don't think I could find a better offer than this anywhere ever. I honestly don't think that's possible, knowing the industries and things like that. So this has been ideal. And then on top of that is potential news that will be coming in the future. Now that that's out of the way, now that I've covered the fact that I am going to be going back full time, what does that mean for everything else, for this channel, for my own personal work? What does that actually mean? As weird as this is going to sound, I actually think it's a benefit to all of those things as well. At work, I think I've mentioned this before as well. At work, our designer Gianni is responsible for, I've definitely mentioned this, responsible for creating this Star Wars figures, what they call the Blue Book, this catalogue of everything related to Star Wars figures. And he's got another one or two of those coming based on other parts of the Star Wars figure toy line, because he didn't cover play sets and ships or anything like that. It was just Star Wars figures in the original book. And so he's having this trilogy of books to match Star Wars. So I was asking him how, as somebody who is full time with War Cradle, how he finds the time to do both. And he said, you just have to find the time. And I know this to be true. I know this to be true. Draining the same batteries or not, if you want to achieve something like this, I know this is the case. Now, I also know myself. And as I mentioned in previous videos, I know that since Jules was released, which is 20 to 25 years ago at this point, which is just insane to think that, I've always said I would finish it and I've never been able to finish it. And even when I went part time and had all of this additional spare time, other stuff just at that time, at which point you've got to question how important was Jules to me. I've even mentioned this in some of the recent videos where you have to have priorities and non negotiables. I plan to finish Jules. I do. I had a message on the last video which was like, finish Jules and finish the game. I do still plan to do that, even though I'm going full time with this stuff, because it is about how much do I want it. I do plan to finish Jules. I've already been working on it again. I'm going to see how I can maintain that. This channel will also benefit because there will be definite ongoing work that I can discuss and how I do that and how I approach it. But now I'm in a position that I think a lot of people would be, who would be trying to create their own content, their own ideas, their own products, their own worlds, all of those things, who also have responsibilities and jobs to take care of. You know, it's like I've said many times on the channel, I am in this I still am, but previously I was in this incredibly fortunate position where I was only working part-time and that was covering all of my costs. Most people aren't in that position. You know, most people realistically have jobs and families and lives and all sorts of things going on that weren't a thing I had to contend with. And so if I want a channel that talks about how to get these things out, then I've got to be the guy. As much as I said in the last video, maybe I'm not that guy. And as much as I still stick by that to some degree, maybe I'm not, but we're about to find out. And if I'm not, it doesn't change the fact that I am that guy creatively who can hold down a career creatively, because I have done for 30 years at this point, if not longer at this point. So it just means, for the channel especially, but for my own work as well, but for the channel, it just means you have to look at what you're doing and adapt what you're doing and accept what it is that you can and cannot do and tailor things to that. If it turns out that I'm not able to do my own work alongside this work, then this channel is going to document that and I'll deal with that as and when it comes. But at the moment, I feel like I am going to be spending time working on Jules and working on the game and slowly working towards a release. How people make that work, honestly, I have no idea because I haven't been able to do it today, but we're going to find out. Alongside that, there's some other things actually. I have these sketch covers to do, which I'll record me doing those, and those can go on the channel. It's a Marvel team up. It's an Invincible Marvel team up. This one is a Spider-Man. All these three covers are Spider-Man meets Invincible, but I don't have to use Spider-Man. Is the actual comic inside? Oh, it is. Interesting. Nice. Who is that? Oh, this is Corey Walker. Of Corey Walker. Now that makes me, well, that just puts the pressure on, right? Dang, this looks good. I love Corey Walker's artwork. So this is a Spider-Man and an Invincible team up. And well, there's some other stuff in there as well. I don't have to do. It has to be Marvel characters or Invincible or whatever combination of that I want. I don't have to do Spider-Man. It just, well, as it's called, Marvel Team Up. And that one is Spider-Man and Invincible. But I can do whatever I want on these covers. So I'm going to draw those covers and I'll cover that on here. I've already got some ideas of who I want to put on these covers. I just tend to like obscure characters for either company, for both DC and for Marvel. I like, old Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. I like old Vigilante. I like Firestorm, and I don't like the main cat. I like Robin more than I like Batman. And it's not because I want to be different. I just like those characters more. I like them slightly, not completely obscure, but slightly more obscure. And in Marvel, I like some of the really obscure characters, so they'll probably go onto those covers. I don't actually know how these are being used, but once they're done, I will speak to the guy that I'm doing these for, and because I know they're for an event. This is not for an individual. This isn't somebody who's asked me to do these is going to be keeping these. These are being used for an event. So I'll find out what the event is and I'll post all the details for it. Alongside these, I've also got two commissions that need doing inside this book. So this book is for somebody who I've done many commissions for over the years. I mean, he's basically said he wants the book full eventually. I've been working on these for a long, long time. Let me show you some of these quickly. I'm sure he won't mind me showing them off. I did him these. These were done as a favour, just because he'd given me so much work and I wanted to sketch these characters out and this whole thing. So I did those in here. Here is another one of the commissions that I've done for him, which is Judge Death and Judge Anderson. There's a full Judge Death one. Who else is in here? I don't actually know who else is in here. That is a Lady Loki. I don't actually know who that character is. This is a group of the Survival Geeks characters that he wanted. Judge Fire, Judge Fear, and Judge Mortis. And now I've got to do Enchantress and MJ and Gwen. I've also got another commission to do for somebody that reached out to me on Instagram. I've still got Gianni's Judge Dredd cover to do, and I've still got Chris's Dungeons and Dragons characters to do. They are front and center of any kind of personal work because a bunch of these are being paid for. One of them is a favor to somebody who I definitely owe favors to, and one of them is for Gianni, who's already given me the book. The blue book, which I've mentioned before. And this is the beast of the blue book, just to show how big that book is. That is the giant size book. And so he gave me that in exchange for doing him this dread cover, which I still haven't done. So anyway, to wrap this up, because there is nothing to add to this today, it was much more of an update. So to wrap this up, I am going full time with War Cradle. There is the potential for some very big news on that front. There is no doubt in my mind it was the right thing to do. Even without the news, to be quite honest, it was the right thing to do. I am just not in the position where I can continue working full time and not get anything released. And I am so far from having anything released that I can't spend another 2.5 years doing what I've just done for the last 2.5 years, saying I'm going to get stuff finished and released. Yes, I hope that in coming months, I will get my own stuff released. I will get these commissions finished. I will get the work for War Cradle done, and there will be announcements. I don't know when the announcements will come, but we'll see. There will definitely be announcements. And if there aren't announcements of new, bigger, exciting news, there will be announcements that I am cutting back at War Cradle because some of the other stuff didn't come off. And I have been able to get my own work into a position where maybe I can spend a bit more time on it. As I said, I don't see me ever quitting War Cradle because one, I really, really do enjoy working with the guys and girls of War Cradle because I mean it as a team. So I like everybody I work with, which is a rarity in this day and age. But I really, especially for me, because I don't like anybody. But I like everybody that I work with. I actually, as much as I've bemoaned the work, the drawing of steampunk tanks, it's fun work, right? And I'm left to my own devices. I said this to them in the meeting. They are very good. There are certain things where they are very specific about what they want, but other things like I did this schematic of a tank for them. When I do the maps for them, I'm just kind of left to get on with it. And unless there is a glaring law error, then they're happy for me to do whatever I want to do. So I enjoy working with them. So I don't see me ever going. The least amount of work I would do for them is the part-time work I was doing anyway. So also with the channel, I'm going to update all this equipment because I've got this lovely mic stand here, and yet I've still got the little tiny mic attached to it. But I am going to update some of this equipment. It gives me the money to finish this and maybe change this for something different. Maybe this is the thing that it gets me back on track rather than the situation that I currently find myself in. Going full time gives me money not just to save for a better future and set myself up with some security, but improve my here and now as well. I've always wanted a van lifestyle van. Well, this gives me the money to be able to do that without worrying where I'll find the funds and things like that. When I started the channel, it was because it was going to all be about like, this is how you get your own projects done and get them out. And there is this part of me again, and I think I've mentioned this on the channel before, where now that I've gone back to being full time, there's this small nagging voice which is like, you failed. Yeah, I don't know how to address that because I don't know how to phrase it in any way that isn't failing to follow through on this completing of my own work and releasing it, because I haven't done that. But like I've said, sometimes you just have to accept that maybe I'm just not that guy. Time will tell. Time will tell. I'm going to keep making the videos. I will keep making the videos. I'm going to keep pushing forward with my own stuff in my own time. I'm going to keep working towards this big news. And when this big news comes around, if this big news comes around, then obviously I will announce it here and talk about it. I'm going to speak to them about the crossover between this channel and what I do for them, what I can and can't show, what I can and can't talk about. One thing I would like to do for them is run their YouTube channel. I feel very comfortable sitting here talking to the camera like this. And I do feel that War Cradle's YouTube channel is seriously lacking. Something I've told them, something I don't mind announcing here either. And I think I could potentially change that for them. I do, because of how weirdly comfortable I am talking on camera. So we'll see. I'm going to leave this one here. So there is the update. The next video, I don't know. Maybe I'll take that one a bit more seriously as well. Well, the next video will definitely cover some amount of this commission work that needs doing. And some updates on the caravan, actually. People did ask that I haven't done a walkthrough and I haven't really talked about the caravan. I do need to do an update on the caravan because I've mentioned before, this YouTube channel is certainly in these early days is as much a documenting of my own process going forward. So I will do a walkthrough of the caravan and talk about what needs adjusting on it and my thoughts about what I'm going to do about potentially either upgrading or changing it or changing the circumstances in general. Not sure on that one yet. We'll see. We'll see. All right. There's the update. If people find that disappointing, I do apologize. I am disappointed myself in my inability over the last 2 years to get either something of Jules out the door or something tabletop game related out the door. I am disappointed in myself over that. But this doesn't mean that it's the end for any of those projects. But if it's not the end for any of those projects, I've got to really figure something else out, because I've been saying for 20 years that I'm going to release Jules and it's still not out. But work is being done on it. Maybe I'll just release what I've got already and just see what people think. Who knows? For another video. All right, because I need to get on with things here. All right. Thanks for watching again. If you've made it to the end, like I always say at the end of these rambling, waffling things, it's a miracle, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate the people that comment, as I said last time. I will update you all very soon once I've got my brain around things a bit more. All right. Cheers for watching. Bye.